Okay, it's
Recording
connecting.
live on YouTube. I see it. Yep.
Okay, I think we're good.
Planning board is now in session. It's Monday, January 24th, 2022, 7:04 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on June 16th, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. People who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so by finding the meeting at www.southborotown.com/remote meetings. First item on the agenda is the Master Plan Committee update. Mrs. Littrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Master Plan Committee last met on January 12th, and we reviewed 4 more chapters. The chapters that have been reviewed thus far were uploaded in the planning board Dropbox. So for your reading pleasure, we're open to your input. We have 2 more chapters to review and 1 to review again, which we'll review at our next meeting on February 16th. There's still some, like, I'm doing the land use and zoning chapter, and there's still some data that I'm trying to update there that came from the 2020 census that is relatively recent. I'm not sure if we'll have an updated zoning map in time to finish the master plan, but I guess we can always add that later. But it looks like we'll finish this before we lose our recording secretary. So in all of their information is on our Google Drive, which can be reached through the Master Plan Committee website on the town website under meeting prep. And that's it.
Excellent. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just comment.
job,
I would,
Mimi.
yeah, same here. Great job, Mimi. Thanks for leading. Great process.
Thank you. It's a great team.
How's the attendance, Mimi?
It's been good. We have our core attendees that we've been able to meet quorum, and they do a ton of work. Kudos to my vice chair, Judith Watson, who's done all the heavy lifting on, the editing and getting things to flow so all the chapters are like and flow the same way. And I should point out that the last time that this was done, it was done with the help of a consultant, except for at the very beginning, we have done this all ourselves. So kudos to the committee. It's a hard working group.
Saving the town probably tens of thousands of dollars by doing it yourselves.
Absolutely.
Maybe even get a more professional, and certainly a more professional product, but also a product that has real ownership by townspeople. That's who put it together.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the minutes. We still have 2 minutes before 7:05. We're all set. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. It's a continued, it's for 325 Turnpike Road, Ken's Foods expansion, major site plan approval. And this is continued from September 27th, October 18th, November 15th, December 13th, January 10th. And this public hearing for 325 Turnpike Road, Ken's Foods expansion, special permit for lower impact development, also continued from those same dates. Understand that the Ken's is not attending tonight. I'll turn it over to Karina for just the top view and our action in this public hearing tonight. Karina.
All right, just briefly, since the last meeting, the applicant team met with me and Fuss and O'Neill to discuss some drainage concerns and responses to Fuss and O'Neill review comments from the prior submittal. That meeting culminated in asking them to provide test pits at the underground storage systems to the south and west of the site in order to confirm elevations of the underground system for Fuss and O'Neill to be able to continue the review. Those were done, and the information was conveyed to Fuss and O'Neill, who's continuing to look over the discussion comments that the applicant team provided. We received this extension request as the applicant team is still working to prepare documents for a revised submission. And as you just saw on the screen, they're requesting an extension, continue the public hearing to February 7th with action by the planning board, a deadline pushed to February 11th, which is the typical 4 days after the continued public hearing for both the lid and the major site plan. We did receive, just briefly, and which we'll probably discuss at the next meeting when the applicant has a opportunity to attend. Let's see here. We received a email from Deb DeMoria, resident at 58 Flag Road, concerning the enclosures of the bays that were discussed at the last meeting, and that was forwarded to the planning board members and the applicant for anticipating discussion at the February 7th meeting. And that's all I have.
So the applicant requested no action or discussion tonight, except acting on their request for the extension and the continuation.
Correct.
So let's have that on the screen, and then if appropriate, we'll entertain a motion to approve their request. So this would continue the public hearing to February 7th, and the would extend the decision period to February 11th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor. Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
So now we need to continue the public hearing to 7:05 p.m. on February 7th.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we continue the public hearing for 325 Turnpike Road, Ken's Food expansion, major site plan approval, and also the 325 Turnpike Road, Ken's Food expansion for special permit LID for February 7th, 2022 at 7:05 p.m.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor. Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. It's now 7:12. We have a 7:10 continued public hearing for 200 Turnpike Road, snow removal, landscaping contractor facility, major site plan approval, continued from November 15th and January 10th, and continued public hearing for 200 Turnpike Road, snow removal, landscaping contractor facility, special permit for lower impact development, continued from the same dates. I think we're in the same situation as we just finished up with. I'll ask the town planner to speak.
Similarly, from the last public hearing, it was at that public hearing on January 10th that a request for continuation and extension of a public hearing was granted with the public hearing continued to this evening, January 24th at 7:10. And the time that the board shall have to reach a decision on the matter was extended to February 11th. So I believe we already have the action extension. We just need continuation to the February 7th planning board meeting for the public hearings. We received an email from the applicant team, Mr. Mark Santor and Jonathan Crandall, who's the owner of the property, requesting to be continued to the next meeting and that they would not be attending this evening. And that's what we have. You can see. Just want to simply continue without testimony for this evening. They're still working on a revised submittal.
And so by granting the applicant's request for continuation to tonight and an extension of the approval period to February 11th, that allows the planning board to continue this hearing to February 7th at 7:10 p.m. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we continue the public hearing for a 200 Turnpike Road snow removal landscaping contractor facility, major site plan approval, and also the special permit LID for the same location for February 7th, 2022 at 7:10 p.m.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Oh,
Oh, hold on,
Marnie's got her hand up.
Mrs. Houlihan.
She's on mute.
For God's sake, you'd think I'd remember how to unmute myself at this point. The sheet that was shown, and that's in the Dropbox, is saying the hearing shall be continued to January 24th.
Which
The
is-
time versus February 7th.
That's right. That was, we took action on that at our last meeting on the 10th. That allowed us to continue the public hearing to tonight. The email requested that we continue the public hearing with no action to February 7th, which is within the previously approved extension of the decision date.
Thank you for the clarity.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Okay, we'll hope to see them all on February 7th. Next item on the agenda is approval not required for 26 Meadow Lane. We'll have that up on the screen and ask the town planner to introduce this.
Sure. While getting it up on the screen, Planning Department received a application for an A&R and application for endorsement of plan believed not to require approval for the property at 26 Meadow Lane. Applicant is Meadow Lane Nominee Trust. Mr. Phil Jenks is the trustee. There are two other properties involved, which are getting a shift in their property line in order to accommodate frontage for the main lot. Let me just see here what else. This is represented as map on Assessor's Map 56, Lot 14. That application was filed with the town clerk on January 20th, 2022. And with us here in the attendees is Mr. Phil Jenks, Mr. Bill Putri, who's one of the property owners of the smaller lots, and Zachary Bemis with Engineering Design Consultants, the company that prepared the plan. If any of them would like to speak to it, they should raise their hand. I don't see anybody. Okay, We have Phil Jenks, who is the trustee of the larger property represented in the plan. And as you're joining him to the meeting, I'd just like to point out to the planning board members that the plan was submitted and was reviewed for completion by me, and Colleen checked all the deed references. There was a couple questions we had and a couple revisions. The engineer of record, the engineering company of record, made those changes that were requested, clarified everything on the plan so that the plan is easy to reference in the future and accurate today. So we believe that the A&R is in good format and form. Colleen, did you elevate Phil Jenks?
He's unmuted if you want to speak, Phil.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Chairman,
Good evening, Mr. Jenks.
distinguished members of the board,
Mhm.
our town planner, my good neighbor Katie, and I think it's Colleen, but we haven't met yet. Thank you for allowing me to present this A&R plan. I think Karina just said it all. It's really one lot identified as 2A, but in achieving what we wanted to do with frontage, there were changes made to 2 smaller lots. All 3 you may recognize as existing lots on Meadow Lane, but for the small changes in the frontage of all of the lots. So they all have the required frontage. They are all very easily accessible by emergency vehicles, being basically flat land and no obstacles. They are on Meadow Lane, public way, and the reason and purpose that I'm here to ask for an endorsement on this plan, as you know, that will inform the Registrar of Deeds in Worcester that these changes do not constitute a subdivision and therefore should be recorded.
Colleen, the plan disappeared.
There we go.
There we go.
I'm sorry, I was trying to pull this one up, but I couldn't.
Is that it, Mr. Jenks?
That is it. I'll be glad to address any questions.
I'll open it up to the board. Mr. Mills?
Man, I'm racking my brain trying to think of some question I can really trip you up on, Phil, but I can't. As always, you present perfectly, and we miss you on the planning board. So
I miss it.
I hope you're doing well, and it's good to hear your voice. No question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein.
Mr. Jenks, you are always so meticulous and precise with your A&R analyses, and I'm so glad to see that nothing's changed. No questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Latrell?
Hi, Phil.
Hello, Mimi.
I went over this with the fine tooth comb, couldn't find anything, no questions.
That's the plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Houlihan.
Hi, Phil.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I don't have any questions either. So as always, perfect presentation and looks good.
Great.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we endorse the A&R requested for 26 Meadow Lane by the applicant.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? I have one discussion item. I think the planning board and staff are fortified when we hear the voice of Phil Jenks. We feel the strength coming through the Zoom. Any other
No
discussion?
question.
Well, thank you.
100% agree.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other comments, questions? Anyone from the public?
We'll get that
Seeing-
planning board ready we'll let the planning board know it's ready for endorsing. So we'll either pass it around or we'll ask, you can come by the townhouse.
We haven't voted yet.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Any other questions or comments from the public or anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Good luck, Phil.
Thank
Bill?
you very much. You can all go home now.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank
Getting
you.
close. Thank you, Phil. All right, next item on the agenda is a discussion item, 156 Northboro Road, site plan compliance. The town planner has some information for us on this agenda item.
All right, as you recall, 156 Northboro Road during permitting was known as 154 to 156 Northboro Road. And it was the construction of contractor bays, I believe like 21 units. Kane Built is the property owner and builder, and representing them is Michael Quinn, who's assisting them through construction and units. A few months ago, we were notified in a discussion that we received condo documents, and it turns out that the permits through planning board were conditioned on a tenant landlord type of approach. So we got a opinion from town council to find out, what do they need to do to proceed? Town council opined that they need to do a modification to their major site plan approval because the conditions were so detailed to a tenant relationship. Yeah, there's Michael Quinn. So in the meantime, we were also have visited the site a few times to review the landscaping, which still needs compliance. Engineering design consultants represented by Peter Bemis submitted as-built to us, which I have since asked Fuss and O'Neill to give us an engineering consultant fee estimate to review those as-built. Once we have that information, then I'll let the applicant know, the proponent know that what that amount is so that they can proceed with having the as-built reviewed. In the meantime, we received a letter from Michael Quinn representing Kane Built, asking to be on the agenda this evening again, so that he can speak to a quick status of the project and their intent moving forward and how to make the site compliant with the landscaping and maybe anything else that's found during the as-built review, and also to remedy the decisions with a modification, actually the major site plan approval. And Michael Quinn is here. I believe Colleen elevated him already.
Good evening. This is Michael Quinn. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Mr. Quinn. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to say that we're not going to be purchasing any plants from Bigelow Nursery, so we'd appreciate if you could sit and be the chairman for the meeting. I think at
Okay.
one time we were thinking about purchasing some plants from them, but that has since changed, and I think you recused yourself from that conversation. So we would appreciate if you remain as chairman, because we will not be purchasing anything from Bigelow.
Okay, thank you.
So, first of all, I appreciate your patience in this, madam. We are moving forward with the creation of the property to be owned as condominiums. We've had several discussions with the assessor's office, and they thought that it would be beneficial to the town because the condominiums would be taxed at a higher rate than as if these units were leased. That's number one. Number two, it is we have found in doing this type of work before that the property gets better maintained by owners rather than tenants. Tenants tend to be messy and they don't care as much as owners. When you own it, you take a lot of pride in your ownership. So we're going to go forward with the project as condominiums. We have several interested parties. Quite a few people that are interested currently live in the town of Southborough, which is kind of interesting. So in the site plan approval, there was an Appendix A, and it called for protocol for new owners, called for a protocol for tenants. And so we're going to submit something in the next couple of days to the planning board asking for, we're going to correct that. And we're going to ask for a modification. So to bring everything up to snuff and where it should be. Basically, the protocol for tenants will be changed to a protocol for new owners and occupants. Once this is approved by the planning board, we will insert this document into the condominium documents so that any new owner coming down the road, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 100 years, they will know about this protocol. Along with the modification, we are going to cite in the previous approval some of the conditions that are related to this protocol, and we're going to ask for the board to adopt the new protocol, which will be for new owners and occupants. Basically stating the same thing. The only thing that's changing is the wording for the occupant. So we should be sending this to the board in the next couple of days. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you. Open it up to the members of the board. Mr. Mills, questions, comments?
Mr. Quinn, thanks for the update. Appreciate it. And look forward to seeing the changes in the application. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome.
Mr. Stein?
I don't have anything at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Luttrell?
Good evening, Mr. Quinn. Will the landscaping be brought into compliance with the approved plans?
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously, we can't. Obviously, we can't do it now. We're not going to ask for any waivers at this point in time on the landscaping. We're going to try to purchase all native plants as outlined in the approved plans in the spring. And if we have a problem, then we'll come before the board and we will let you know what the problem is and deal with it at that time. But right now, it is our intention to purchase all native species as outlined in the approved plans.
Very good. Good answer. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Mrs. Houlihan?
I have no questions. Thanks, Mr. Quinn.
So Karina, will, depending on what's submitted, we've heard what Mr. Quinn intends to do. What's submitted will most likely be sent to town council for review and guidance on how to proceed through the modification public hearing.
Yes, and Michael, with the understanding that you understand that this is an application for a modification to a major site plan approval. So there are certain requirements for that, and albeit you don't need plans, but you do have to submit an application, and it'll be a public hearing and a butter notifications. We did get a copy of your certified abutters list that you requested.
Oh, good.
I think this morning. So that's good. That's a step in the right direction.
Yes, good. Thank you. Yeah, so we will be submitting a modification based on what was approved, and welcome the town council to take a look at it. Hopefully it'll be acceptable.
Any other questions or comments from the board or the public? Okay, I guess if that's it, then we'll say goodnight to you, Mr. Quinn. You're welcome to stay, but we'll move on to our next agenda item, if it's okay.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank
All
you.
right,
Good night.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Next item on the agenda is a discussion item, and it's the tree bylaw proposed warrant article. This is based on my discussions with the town planner. This is still a fluid situation that needs some more work, not necessarily on the language of the draft bylaw, but on the whole tree program that it's connected to. So did you want to go, Karina? We lost Karina.
I think we just lost her. She's trying here. There she is. Oh, sorry. Karina, you have there.
How do I get my video back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
we
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Okay, let me see here. See if I can get this working. All of a sudden, I just disappeared. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm back. Somehow I just
You're back.
disappeared. Who made that wish? Okay. Don, what would you like me to do?
You and I had a discussion earlier today.
Yes.
So probably tell the board and the public where this is relative to, we don't have buy-in from the DPW director. Some of the points that she's made, I think at least you and I agree with. And then some of the other comments or suggestions would probably need to be discussed with, further discussed with DPW and also probably the Board of Selectmen. So go ahead, Karina.
Sure. So I had a good conversation with DPW director earlier today, talking about, the tree bylaw and, the aspects of who has what jurisdiction and what's required by Mass General Law, with the sections we all know related to scenic roads and public shade tree removal. And currently, the DPW has jurisdiction with the tree warden working for the DPW under the Board of Selectmen. And my impression and my understanding is that, the DPW, Karen Gallagher, the DPW director, is not, fully on board with the bylaw, the draft bylaw right now, how it's written. And one of the concerns is that, when they have trees that need to be taken down because they feel they're a public safety hazard because there's something wrong with them, they don't need to do a tree warden hearing, is the understanding. However, when it's on a scenic road, trees are required to have a planning board permit for a scenic road tree removal. So in the past, I guess they had the ability to, and I guess still right now, to remove trees that they define as dead based on their arborist reports. The concern is that sometimes it appears, or it has happened, where some of those trees may not have been imminent in the opinion of other people. So we have this conflict, and it's my understanding the Public Works would be perfectly happy to let the planning board have jurisdiction over tree removal. But with that comes, other parts to that. So the tree warden, would the planning board act as the tree warden? The tree warden reports to the Board of Selectmen right now. A tree warden has to have certain arborist qualifications in order to perform his job. So it would likely be the planning board would have to hire someone to do that, a consultant to provide those services. So just so it's very clear, it takes a while to wrap your brain around this, but the DPW has no hearings for dead trees. So when National Grid comes out, for example, and the tree warden walks the street with National Grid, and National Grid is going to trim the trees from away and sometimes cut them down below. They leave these stumps about 10 feet tall. And usually then, because they were dead trees, the DPW tries to mitigate by removing those stumps. So National Grid does a favor by taking down additional dead trees on the street that the DPW has slated to come down because they're a hazard. And then, so National Grid comes in, cuts them down below the lines, leaves the stump up, and the DPW would then come in and cut the rest of the stumps down. And it saves them money for full tree removal, et cetera. But it creates this problem. There's this problem with what is a dead tree? Is it dead tree? Is it going to be dead in the future? Is it an imminent public hazard? All these kinds of things. So, we're hoping that the tree bylaw, the proposed tree bylaw addresses some of these things. I don't know, Don, if there's anything else you can add. There's the jurisdiction of permitting a tree removal, and then there's also, the physical work that has to be done to remove a tree, which would most definitely need to stay under the DPW's purview with the crews they have and the contracts they have. But the question would be, where is the jurisdiction best suited for tree removal? I understand Karen's point of view, and she's concerned with liability. And if she can't take a tree down, she doesn't want to be responsible if it does happen to fall the next day. It may not fall for 5 years, but what if it happens the next day is her point. And then she's on the hook, or the town's on the hook. But then on the other hand, if a tree appears to be a danger and it's valid for another 5 years, who's to say? So, she doesn't really want to keep a liability of something she's not comfortable leaving there if her arborist tells it's a problem, or if she feels it, or if there's a resident who feels like this is leaning over my house and I don't want it falling on my car or my house. So that's kind of the dynamics of the yin and yang of this topic.
And this discussion was just today. So it would seem that we need to get deeper into this. Obviously, if DPW wants to relinquish all of the matters pertaining to town public trees, that's no way that would be taken over by the planning board, because we don't have equipment, we don't have the know-how, we don't have the expertise to issue contracts to arborists, tree removal people, at all. So if you break it down into two pieces, one would be the admin part of it, the hearings, the process part of deciding what to do with a tree. If that gets shifted over to the planning board, that may be manageable if we're able to get a detailed list of what's required. And then everything else, which would be to hire the bucket trucks and the cranes and the chainsaw guys, as DPW does now, would stay with the DPW. But there's probably a process that we could agree upon where planning board would initiate the call for a tree to be removed or trimmed, and take that through an appropriate process, and then at the end of that process, either tell DPW cut it down, trim it, or leave it alone. That may be something that's manageable. It takes the admin part of it over to an office that's almost all admin, which is the planning department. And it takes the process of physical tree removal over to the people that do all the physical work, which is the DPW. So somewhere in between, there would be a clear line drawn as to who does what and when. So it seems to me that it's worth looking into, and it may produce a clearer process and path to either save a tree or have it removed, and totally involving the neighbors and the public. So I guess we'll open it up to the board for initial thoughts, but remembering that today's discussion with Karen and Karina is kind of a follow-on to an earlier discussion. What do we have, like 2 weeks ago at the town hall with town council, and you were there, Mimi. So it seems to be a continuing discussion, and hopefully it will lead to something. You want to go first, Mimi?
Sure. I just, for a historic sense, there was a process that the planning board, the Board of Selectmen, or a representative of the Board of Selectmen in the DPW superintendent did agree upon. And then the DPW superintendent changed her mind, which is why we're now trying to do a bylaw. So we had been there, and the reason we're here is that trees are coming down with no hearings. And if you look at the arborist reports that are on the DPW website, there are hundreds and hundreds of trees that are slated for removal. And it's of the opinion of the DPW superintendent that she can just take all those down without a hearing. And I've looked at them, a lot of them aren't dead. Half the trees on Oregon Road are slated for removal. 45% of the ones on Edgewood Road. So somewhere in between the dead trees falling down on people and having hearings on everything, there's got to be a mid-ground that follows mass general laws. And so the idea of the bylaw was to tighten those things up and define what an emergency is and when things can come down without a hearing. And when trees are sitting on an arborist report for months and months and months, I don't understand why there can't be a public hearing. So the bylaw that's in the Dropbox was the initial one that I wrote, that I added edits that I received from Marnie and Debbie DeMaria and Sam Stivers. And there are a couple different directions. My original bylaw was just pretty much sticking with Chapter 87 and the scenic tree bylaw, and what's there now has expanded a little. It covers lot clearing. It gives a little more of a check and a balance to the planning department or the planning board. So those are some of the things that we need to decide what direction we want to go in.
Very good. Marnie, you want to go next?
Thank you. So Mimi, thank you for taking the lead on this. I spent some time reviewing this, and I'm in agreement. I mean, I think it comes back down to we shouldn't be dictated by somebody who works for the town. We should be guided by, as elected officials, what is best for the town. And I agree that a process needs to be in place. And I think that's exactly what this does. It also provides governance around decision-making. And I do think there needs to be decision around the tree warden and planning board. And Karina, you lost me a little bit with us having to hire a consultant. Like, that confused me a little bit. So I maybe, we don't need to go back and revisit it, but I think it would be in our best interest as a tree city. And I think we are obligated to either have a tree board or to have some sort of setup to be able to kind of manage this, that we have that kind of authority with the tree warden to make these decisions. And I'm in complete agreement with Mrs. Luttrell and some other vocal citizens that we need to kind of get in line. It's very worrisome when you drive down your street and there's a tree that's been removed, that's been there for 100 years, and all of a sudden just needs to be removed. And there's no real ramification, there's no process involved. So I fully support this. I reviewed the edits again, and I think maybe it would be wise for us to just have another meeting to be able to move forward and put the right set of language forward for the town. But I think it's going in the right direction. I think Mrs. Luttrell has made the right accommodations. Mrs. DeMaria has added some other really good things around, like clear cutting large geographies and their ramifications to that. So I really think it's a comprehensive bylaw, and it's making great progress. So again, Mrs. Luttrell, thanks for taking the lead on that. And I'm happy to work alongside you to make sure we can get something in front of town meeting that's sound, that's reasonable, and isn't overly bureaucratic.
Thank you. Mr. Stein?
I completely agree with Ms. Houlihan. Ms. Luttrell, thank you very much for your diligence on this. It seems like a shame that we're in this position where we need a bylaw to maintain oversight of a department in town that reports to the Board of Selectmen. I don't quite understand that. I'm sure more will be revealed. And again, Ms. Luttrell, thank you for your work.
And Mr. Mills?
I have nothing new or exciting to add. I agree 100% with what everyone else has said. And Mimi, thank you for your due diligence and stewardship of this. And I support it 100%. Finding, a more common ground or middle road where we can ensure that the trees that are viable for a lengthy amount of time can stay. So thank you.
So the way forward from tonight, I would suggest, would be asking the town planner to continue with an open dialogue with either DPW or one of the selectmen to get clarity on the things like the roles of the tree warden and the desired roles of DPW for the planning department. And I would suggest that if it's okay with the board, we not only assign and ask the town planner to keep this moving, but to invite Mrs. Luttrell to be a partner on that. And even myself to willing to go to a meeting or have Zooms to try to keep this thing moving toward a clear set of rules that everyone can live with. Is that okay with the board? If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the scenic road proposed warrant article. It's a discussion item. We all saw that email from town council.
Just correction, John.
To us, and
That
it
was,
offered,
that was just an email from me.
oh, from you, yes, and it was
Yeah,
capturing
I
your
don't wanna-
discussion with town council. Go ahead, Karina.
Blame him for that. Okay,
No, if we like it, then we'll give you credit.
okay. All right. So at the last public hearing, at the last planning board meeting, the planning board asked me to follow up with town council on a few questions regarding what that 1978 warrant article means for scenic road designations. And, you know, have there been any changes to the Mass General Law since that article was put in place, adopted, and then to get any feedback on a potential new warrant article for scenic roads. So it was, in my discussion, town council had townhouse hours last week. So I had the opportunity to talk to him about several of these things. And I do my best to convey exactly what he tells me back. And you'll note I copy him on the email to you so that if there is any discrepancy in what I'm telling you, that he could speak to it if he sees something like that. Just to keep everything covered. So the first question was about 1978. Does that mean all roads in the future? And the answer is no. It's only roads that were in existence up to the annual town meeting date, which specifically I think was April 10th of 1978, when that warrant article was adopted. During that discussion, he also advised that, you know, you could do a similar warrant article like the 1978 for the 2022 annual town meeting, but that the intent of Mass General Law and the wording alludes to that it's streets in existence, that you wouldn't designate streets that don't exist yet as scenic roads, because the idea is that the Conservation Commission or the Planning Board, and there was another entity, possibly the Board of Selectmen, would evaluate, or the Historic Commission. So it was the Conservation Commission, Planning Board, or Historic Commission would evaluate a road and then propose it to be designated as a scenic road. So if we were to prepare another article, it would do the same thing, but just update it to any street in existence to the annual town meeting date if it was passed for 2022. There haven't been any significant changes to Mass General Law, according to town council, since 1978 that would really affect that. Let's see, what else did he say? He said the best way to address issues, you know, if you want future roads to be considered, it would be through the local bylaw. And he recommended that, you know, you don't do sweeping language for future in a warrant article because of its reference to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 15C, which is, again, is more geared towards existing roads. Then he said it's in the best interest that when you do prepare a bylaw, that they are simple, straightforward, and not too complicated, because the more complex they are, higher risk that they don't pass.
So these only apply to public ways, not private roads?
I believe, yes.
I think I agree with that. The other thing is his recommendation is easy to follow because you know, we're doing this for the first time since 1978. That's a long time ago. And in the 80s and the 90s, we were probably doing anywhere from 5 to maybe 15 new roads a year when all the subdivisions were being built all over town. But now, probably in the last couple of years, we've only had maybe 1 or 2 roads a year, and it's manageable. So if the planning board keeps an eye on this and every several years does a new warrant article to capture any new roads, if that's what we want to do, then it's an easy and manageable thing. And don't even think about this year any attempt to go beyond what the existing roads are at this point in 2022. Any questions?
Also to point out, John, also to point out that Colleen, you know, jumped right in and immediately contacted the fire department and the DPW to get a list of any roads that have been accepted. And we provided you that for review so you could see how many roads that included.
Yeah. Yep. Any questions, comments, Mr. Mills?
No, that makes sense. And appreciate the mining that you guys did to get the information for us. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Stein?
Right alongside with Mr. Mills on this. Great work, and look forward to seeing this continue.
Mrs. Latrell? Want to compliment yourself?
I had nothing to do with the scenic roads. But thank you, Colleen and Karina. It was interesting. There were a lot of roads that were accepted in 1909. Was that like the first year that you had to accept roads or something? Because I'm sure there wasn't a ton of building in that.
I was a little kid. I don't remember. I was a little kid back then.
You weren't on the board then?
There was no planning board then. Yeah.
So Dawn, are you saying that leave things as they are for this year and not accept any more scenic roads for this town meeting?
No, I'm saying
okay.
Move ahead. Move
Okay.
ahead with a warrant article that would list each road. We have that. And so the public, when the warrant article comes up, it would say give scenic road category to the following roads. And then there's the list of roads. That wouldn't just be for the people today at this year's town meeting to see what roads, but it would also document for the future, anybody that wants to see which of the roads in town are scenic roads. You'd have the complete list when you combine the previous ones.
And we could eventually make a map, to highlight them, and if that's beneficial.
Sure.
Now, Don, with the roads list, so the 1978 warrant article was, generically said, all streets are, non-numbered are designated scenic road. And it's the interpretation that it's up to 1978. With the new warrant article, would we want to, like you said, just list out all the roads from 1978 to now, or include the 1978, from prior to 1978 up to 2022, a list of those roads, and then say those are scenic? Or do you just build upon the first warrant article?
Good question. And I think we need to look at that, the best way to present it. I think there was some discussion about don't go back and undo what has already been done. Don't go there. Focus on the new roads. And then I guess, I mean, we can look at that and maybe discuss with council the best way to present it. But if we just talk about the new roads and have information for the public as to the previous scenic road list, like for example, I think I live on Deerfoot, but I think the language that I read was only sections of Deerfoot are designated as scenic. So, or whatever road you live on, if you saw the list here in 2022, gee, I don't see my street on here. How come it's not on here? So maybe as a part of, not as a part of the warrant article, but as part of the presentation information, there would be the list of existing scenic roads from 70, was it 75 and 76 or 74 and 75? And then 78. There were three town meetings that did it. So the people would, by voting and hopefully passing the article, then there'd be a total list that we could create. And like you said, make a map.
Okay,
I guess we'll keep working on it. We can talk, we can start to refine it right down to quickly, because I guess they're going to be printing. Oh, no, I guess the town meeting has been moved to a warm date, which would get us from March probably into at least May or June.
I'll keep you updated on when I hear.
Okay, any more questions or comments on this agenda item? All good things. Next item is discussion item, recording clerk policy. Is that a draft policy, or has it been approved or implemented?
It's my understanding that at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, it was accepted by the Board of Selectmen. Yeah.
You have that? There we go. So the question to the board and the concern of the board is this is a one size fits all policy. So if we have a board that has relatively common non-technical actions with pretty much ordinary wording, as opposed to a board that has highly technical, maybe scientific language used, or procedures. The board that may have the more simple things to do may say, well, we only want to pay, these are easy. We only want to pay $40 an hour or $25 an hour. Is that okay? And what would be the answer? And then if you had a board that was highly technical, using legal and scientific terminologies that required the recording secretary to have knowledge of these procedures, knowledge of the meanings of the words, is $50 an hour enough? Is that recording secretary required to gain more knowledge and understanding of what the board is trying to do? So it's a little concerning that this policy is one size fits all, even though there's a bit of a range of complexity across these committees, boards, and commissions. The other question is, does this policy, the planning board is an elected board with its own standalone budget. Is it proper for another board to implement a policy that affects how another elected board gets its job done and spends its money that the people of the town approve? As you know, planning board prepares its own budget, presents it to the town meeting. The town meeting approves it, and we execute the budget as approved. If they decide to reduce the budget and that gets approved, then we execute that budget best we can. So it can't be a free-for-all necessarily, but this seems to me to be certainly not applicable to us, to the planning board, for several reasons. One is, I think, the complexity and technical nature of the stuff that we do requires a recording secretary to learn more than maybe other boards' recording secretaries. And then the second thing, as I said, is, does one board have the ability to implement a policy that impacts the way another elected board tries to perform its responsibilities? So I'll open it up to the board for questions and comments. At this point, we should probably just try to open up a dialogue and see where that takes us. Not necessarily just tonight, but with the selectmen, and maybe there's a way that there can be an adjustment to the policy, or in either dollars or in who is required to participate. Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we talked about this last time. I mean, we want to be fair, and like I said before, Kate, you take great notes, and we've spent, I think, sometimes more time on meeting minutes than we did in a meeting, going over our prior meeting minutes before you arrived. So I definitely see the value of it, and it is a record, going forward for the planning board, and they are very important for what we're discussing and voting on for the town. So having said that, I think it's important that, one, we have a good note taker, or meeting minute taker, and also they're compensated fairly. So I would be in favor of pursuing our own path if need be, to ensure that based on, we retain the skill set needed for our technical notes, and make sure that they are, like I said, compensated appropriately for their work. Thank you.
Mr. Stein?
Not much to add, really. I'm in agreement with both of you that we're an elected board. I don't see how another elected board has any say over our budget. It's a town meeting issue, and it should remain so. And I agree, we have excellent work being done on our minutes, and we would need that to continue. Thank you.
Mrs. Luttrell?
While I agree with the premise of this policy, I found out today, I thought that the previous $150 a meeting was a town policy, but it evidently that started with the planning board and it was picked up by everybody else. And as with everything in the planning department, it was intently researched, and all the other towns were looked at to try and come up with a fair contract for our minute taker. And then that was applied townwide to meetings that didn't necessarily require the same skill set or time that is required on the planning board. So Kate takes fabulous minutes, and I've said it before, I've gone back in the before Kate time looking at minutes trying to figure out something that happened at a previous planning board meeting, and I couldn't make hide nor hair out of what was being said. Her minutes are fabulous, and they're a great historic record for the planning board. And I would be in favor of doing whatever it takes to keep her happy.
Mrs. Houlihan?
Yeah, not a lot to say differently than my other members. I think the value that Kate brings is significant. She's been trained and understands the technical aspects of the obligations of the role, and has had to learn engineering speak, legal speak, and be able to kind of combine that and weave it into an effortless document that someone could read. considering the weight of these minutes these days, I mean, we've seen many open meeting law violations being posted, and Southborough's been in, we have not as planning board, but we've seen other boards in violation. And I think there's a legal obligation to do these well and right. And I think Kate has been trained and she's amazing. And so I would be in agreement with my fellow planning board members that we pursue an alternative path that ensures that the technical aspect and doesn't put us at risk for any violations of not capturing minutes accurately.
So we keep talking about Kate, and that's because Kate is our current contractor performing this task. If and the dollar amount isn't necessarily what keeps Kate happy. It's the dollar amount should be equal to the work. It should be what the work is worth, quality work, which is what this board wants. I mean, if Kate said, forget it, I'll just do it for free. You listening, Kate? I'll just do it for free. Well, that wouldn't be right. Or if she said, I want $1,000 a set of minutes. Well, we'd love to give it to you because we like you, but the job's not worth that at this time. So it's really more what the job is worth, and it's a quality job. That's what we want. We've had other note takers, and they do the best they can. But when you find when you get to the level of that performance, and we all like it, we say, well, it's unnecessary to be that great, and we feel that it is. If we have it, we can get it. Let's keep it. I guess I'll open it up to the public or any questions or comments out there. And I don't know, I want to put Colleen on the spot, but this isn't your first planning board that you've worked with. And I'm sure that you could clearly maybe reinforce what we're trying to say here. I mean, you're new to us and you come from another town with quite a few years of experience. I mean, are we all crazy? Well, no, I won't ask that.
I can't make a comment on that yet. I did the meeting minutes in Chelmsford for the planning board, the zoning board of appeals. That was pretty much it. Some of the subcommittees of the planning board. It's not easy, and mine looked nothing like Kate's. I mean, it was a generalization, but it would take me a 3-hour meeting, could take me as much as 6 to 8 hours to get done. It's a lot. And that was one thing that always held me back. The meetings keep coming and you just can't find the time during the day. Yeah, it's worth its weight to have a good minute taker.
Anyone else? Thanks, Colleen. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Well, I guess if it's okay with the board, anyone else is free to join in, but I guess Karina and I will continue to go into this and see if there's any ability to have a little bit of flexibility for the planning board. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next item, which is the planner's report. Karina.
All right. In the Board of Selectmen's meeting packet on January 4th, there was a very rough draft warrant, which I put in the Dropbox for the planning board to look at already. You'll notice that the tree bylaw and the scenic road bylaw have placeholders there. There's also the Shop Street initiative for the CPC funding to go directly to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, an initiative that they're working on with Sarah Pekka still right now. So that's there. If you want a physical copy, let me know. I can print one up for you, but I usually wait till it gets a little bit more advanced. But you get a general idea of all the warrant articles that are coming. I'm not sure you're aware of this, but there's I think there was a procurement for a designer for townhouse renovations that was recently recommended, that had extensive background in preservation of historic buildings. So an RFQ was put out for design services related to the Southborough Townhouse renovations project. So just making you aware of that. We already know about the annual town meeting delay. I'll keep you updated on warrant article deadlines. And at some point, when we get a handle on that, we'll start the process for public hearing for the tree bylaw when we get to that point. Also, town council said as soon as the planning board's ready with the version that they want to move forward with, he'll review it for us and give any feedback there. Let's see here, and I think that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item is questions or comments? Next item is approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the minutes from January 10th, 2022 as written.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yeah.
Houlihan, yes.
Very good. Anything else? Questions, comments? Mrs. Latrell.
I wonder if some meeting in the future, we should have on the agenda the MBTA community requirements. As we have a commuter rail station, we're required to have an overlay district within, half of it has to be within a half mile of the train station. And I know Shopsy is discussing it, but it doesn't really appear to be an affordable housing legislation. Like they want to review any affordable requirements on a case-by-case basis. So it may be something that the planning board wants to look at and discuss.
Hey, Mimi, the context that, if I'm remembering correctly, that came up and is because we have a subcommittee on 21 Highland Street. So I think that the proximity of that site to the commuter rail was, in the context of perhaps adaptively changing the use to housing for that town-owned building. Having said that, in the course of our discussions on Shopsy, it did occur to me that I question whether or not, if we don't actually have public wastewater, the comprehensive impact of the overlay district doesn't seem appropriate to a community that's on private septic. So since you mentioned Shopsy, I thought I would just kind of comment on what those discussions consisted of, as I recall them. Thanks.
So
There are currently a lot of workshops right now, and we've been gathering information, and Sarah has been working with Shopsy on, keeping them updated and all that. So there is a interim form that needs to be submitted by May 22nd. So the guidelines are still under review. So they have these fundamental things moving forward, but there's still some solidifying of what the requirements are. Because like Mimi was saying, you have to make a certain area, 50 acres, half of which need to be within a half mile of the train station to be viable, so that available for somebody up to 750 or a minimum of 750 units, a certain density. They don't, someone doesn't have to come in. It just has to be an available zoning district that someone, if they wanted to, could approach that. And the problem is there the land there with the existing housing that surrounds that train station. So, I myself have a lot of research to do to figure out and go to some of these workshops. Mimi's seen some of those herself. Sarah has, Colleen has. So we're all trying to wrap our arms around it and see what that means for Southborough and what the options are. The other thing is that if you don't meet the requirement, there's certain types of funding that you're not valid to obtain. And I think those are, the name of them slips me, but it's MassWorks or something like that. It's one of those. And
One Stop, I think.
And One Stop. And One Stop is a big thing for EDC right now in the Board of Selectmen. So, we're still learning about this. They're providing guidance more and more. We'll figure out with the assistance of Shop C and, where to take this and where we go. So we have a little bit of time, but we're educating ourselves right now on it. So.
Okay with that, Mimi, for now? Okay. There was one other item, other business properly before the board, and that is recently our volunteer for the ARPA committee is just overloaded, and we're looking for a new ARPA committee volunteer. Has sent an email out on that for members to think about. Is there anyone out there that would like to take Marnie's spot as a member of the ARPA committee? Or should we adjourn and then go into a brief admin session to discuss the details of that task?
I'd be happy to take that. I'd attend the meetings, but I would look to the board to guide me on what they thought were good expenditures for those funds.
You sure, Mimi? I mean, I know you have a lot on your plate. I would, if I had more time, I'd do it. But I just don't have the bandwidth with work and everything else going on. I feel bad, Mimi, knowing what
I don't have a job on my plate.
Okay, well, I want to personally recognize everything that you have been doing for the planning board. I really appreciate it. Where I haven't been able to, with work, do as many of the other side duties that have come up. So if you're willing to do it, I'll definitely make the motion, and much appreciated if you did. And
But I will look to my fellow members for guidance.
Yeah.
I'm happy to support that. Thank you, Mimi.
Likewise.
Mr. Mills.
Thanks, Mimi.
Mr. Mills,
Make a motion that Ms. Luttrell fulfill the role for the planning board. What is it? ARP?
ARPA.
ARPA, for the ARPA committee going forward.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Oh, Latrell, yeah.
Houlihan, yes, and thank you.
Yes, and thank you.
And the planning department will extend any help possible that we can, as we're catching up with these applications and some of the past work that we're trying to clean up and address. So we're always there, and we really appreciate all the effort you put in, Mimi and corresponding with us and telling us new things and asking our advice as well sometimes. And we're happy to help you.
You're always great help.
Thanks.
Anything else before we adjourn? Anyone from the public? I
We
had two
currently
things.
have three, we just so you know, there's 3 attendees right now.
I had two things before we adjourn. One is, Kate, so you know, Karina and I are working on the policy. It's not resolved as far as I'm concerned, and I think that there's room to find a way forward with that. So don't despair and don't, just keep performing your contract.
I promise. And I genuinely appreciate all the support from you all and your kind words. That was lovely. And I really enjoy working for you all, genuinely. So thank you for everything, truly.
And the last thing before we adjourn, Colleen, could you hold up your glass? Hold it there. Mimi, yours? All right, Marnie? I didn't see you guys drinking anything.
Like I said,
Jesse, nothing? Oh, there, Kate's, yeah, I knew she, and I've been slugging on this thing.
I have nothing.
So do we want to take a vote for who's got the best? I'll withdraw mine.
Well, in that
I think
case, I'm gonna
so.
use this one.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I thought we were going to toast somebody.
Well, we can. We can.
Here's
I
to
was
John Morris.
I don't know. I like Colleen's glass the best.
Yeah.
I was distracted by the excellent glassware and not so okay, no vote. It shows how different we all are. Mr.
And
Mills,
cheers to Mimi, though, definitely, since we did have him up. Here, here,
Okay.
thank you. I owe you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Thanks, good night.
Thank
Bye.
Good
you.
night.
Thanks
Good
all.
job, Colleen.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks, Colleen. We can't hear you.
There you go. I hope you all have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, you
you.
too.
Good job, Colleen. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi.
Bye.